Today, we're talking about the big topic, the big B, blessing. What is the blessing? How does it apply to you? And what this video is going to be talking about is how do you come to a place where you understand what the blessing is all about? Before we get started, I want to encourage you guys, wherever you're listening to this episode, this is the MatchNet podcast. This is the only podcast that is just for you good folks of the world who are trying to get matched and blessed in a successful and smooth way. And we're providing everything we can, all the resources we can, just for you guys to keep you inspired, educated, and motivated to get through this. So wherever you're listening to this, watching this, encourage you to subscribe, follow the podcast, subscribe on YouTube. And today we're going to be talking about the blessing, the big B. So my promise for you in this episode is that I'm going to explain the blessing to you in a way that you have never heard before. All right. I know you've probably heard a lot of different approaches and perspectives about the blessing. So the deal is, if I can blow your mind a little bit, if I can give you a perspective that you've never thought about, or you've never heard, then I want you to like this video if you're on YouTube, and I want you to share it with somebody if you're listening to the podcast. All right. That's the deal. So let's get started. This is part of a 7-step process to have a successful matching process in blessing. So this is one of the steps in that, and I'm going to give you that full video, that full episode after this one, so you can stick around for that. So the first thing we're talking about is, number one, if you want to understand what the blessing is, I'm not going to tell you what the blessing is, guys. I think that's ultimately for you to decide. And what we've seen over and over again is that people who enter the blessing, the matching process, with a firm personal understanding of what the blessing is, have better success in their relationship. Why? Because when you're in a relationship, when things do get a little rocky, as they do in marriage, you will have a fundamental belief that you go back to, a fundamental motivation and reason to be in that relationship that is beyond just two people coming together. That is beyond just my own emotions in the moment, how I'm feeling in the moment. You will always have the backdrop of our relationship is based on something that is eternal, something that is bigger, and something that we're going to be taking with us, not only in this lifetime, but eternity, and passing on to your children and your generations to come. If you enter your relationship with that foundation, whatever difficulties come, and I can testify this firsthand, whatever difficulties come, you will be able to overcome them, because you will have the understanding that your blessing is a commitment to growth ultimately. If I were to summarize what the blessing is ultimately for me in my life, it's a commitment to grow no matter what, no matter what. And if you have that commitment to grow, you can see a beautiful smashing blessing beyond anything you thought possible. Okay, so the first step in how to figure out what the blessing means to you is you first have to understand God. All right. Now you might be thinking, I don't even know if God is real. I don't even know if God exists. The reason you need to get God in your life before you understand the blessing is because without God and spirituality in your life, without a decent understanding of what God is and a belief in God, it is very nearly impossible to understand what the blessing is. Okay. There's a certain order of these things that we're talking about. If you don't understand God and spirituality, that you are a spiritual being, that God, what is God's heart? What is God's love like? What is God's anguish like? Why did God create humanity? Why is the blessing even important to God in the first place? If you don't understand, have a personal relationship with God, the blessing is literally just a ceremony, guys. It is literally just two people coming together for their lifetime, and maybe they'll make it work or not. But if you have God at the center, if you have a firm belief in God first, the blessing means eternally more, infinitely more than just a ceremony and two people coming together. All right. So that's why God comes first. You cannot understand the blessing, guys. Let me emphasize this again. You cannot understand the blessing if you don't have a personal relationship with God first and foremost. I'm not saying you guys need to be like in total oneness and complete union with God or anything like that, or be so 120% devoted to hundoke and prayer. No, I'm talking about you have to have fundamentally a commitment to understand God, to develop that relationship with God, and to feel God's love. That's really what it comes down to. If you can be a person that feels the love of God and has a desire to give to God, to give back, to have that relationship, then you're in good standing and you will develop that relationship as you go throughout your life. Okay, moving on to number two. This one, number two, is the second thing you need to do to understand what the blessing is. You need to understand true parents second. Why did I say true parents second? Because the same reason. If you don't understand God, it's very hard to understand what true parents are. Does that make sense? It's very difficult for people to get who true parents are, their mission, why they did what they did, why they do what they do, if you don't first understand what God's heart is like. Guys, personally, when I think about true parents, why is it that I am moved to tears when I see true father and true mother? It's because God, true parents love the same God that I love. That's it. When I see true mother talking, when she gives a speech, let me know if this is true. She cries almost every time she talks about God's heart. Did you notice that? It's like clockwork. When she tears up in her public speeches, it is almost always because she's talking about God's history, God's heart, God's anguish. True parents love God so much. And the same God that I love, that moves me to see that. And if you don't understand why their motivation, true parents' motivation for why they do everything they do, it's for God's heart, it's for God's being entity, then you can understand what true parents are about. I was in Korea for True Father's Seonghwa in 2012. Many of you guys were probably there. There was 150,000 people there, by the way. And interestingly, the stadium can only hold about 50,000. So get that. I was lucky enough to be right in there on the ground floor for True Father's Seonghwa. Literally 50,000 people crying, weeping because of True Father's death. Many people crying because of sadness. Many people crying because of joy. When I was crying not because of sadness, because man, this man lived his entire life for God, for something that he believed in beyond himself. He put himself. Say whatever you want, world, about your parents. They invest themselves 200% for the sake of God. And it is so apparent when I see true mother and true father's face that they love God so dearly that they're willing to do so much. Why am I sharing this, guys? Because if you can understand God first, then you can understand who true parents are. And then you can understand why the blessing is so precious to true parents, why the blessing is so precious to God. I have seen many, many times that people that get this are fundamentally able to have a successful blessing and a meaningful relationship is because they can find these things first. You can't get the blessing if you don't understand God. You can't understand the blessing if you don't, secondly, understand true parents, their mission, why they are here, why they did what they did. If this is ringing true for you guys, I want you to let me know that. That'd be awesome. Okay. So again, just to reiterate, this is a process I'm explaining in order to help you all figure out what the blessing means to you. That's the goal. I'm not here telling you what the blessing is. I'll tell you a little bit at the end, my fourth point, but really I want you to dig deep. I want you to figure out what the blessing means to you because I believe wholeheartedly that if you do that, your chances of success in finding a partner, but also creating a beautiful blessing, a radiant blessing, will go through the roof. Okay, so number three step in this process to figure out the blessing is ask around. Okay, I have seen a few people do this that I was helping through the matching process where they just made it a mission during their process. Like they wanted to get blessed. They knew they wanted to get blessed, but they didn't really figure out like what is the blessing to me. I don't really understand what it means to me on a really deep level. It's more of a like, oh my, because my parents want me to, or it's because everyone around me, my community, my friends got blessed, so I might as well. If you enter a relationship with that mindset, guys, the challenges of a marriage will outweigh your motivation, and it's going to become very easy for you to give up midway through. That's why asking around, here, not just asking, but hearing testimonies, hearing personal encounters from individuals who have received the blessing, have experienced life-changing experiences through their blessing, beautiful experiences. It's through hearing those stories that you can really start to understand what the blessing is. Maybe you'll talk to your pastor Maybe you'll talk to your friend, your parents. Maybe you'll talk to someone who's been blessed for 1 year and someone who's been blessed for 40 plus years. And you'll ask them, what has the blessing mean to you? How has been your experience? You'll hear a lot of interesting things. And I promise you that what you're going to hear is might be challenging to hear, might be really inspiring to hear, but overall, it's going to be good for you to hear. It's going to be informative. It's going to help you make a good decision. I think this is something that not enough people do is just ask people for their testimony. What's the blessing mean to you? Mom, dad? Why is a blessing important to you? Brother or friend who's been blessed or anything like that. Okay. By the way, if you want to know what true parents think about the blessing, it's all over the Hoon. Okay, go read the Chunsung Young. There's a book 5 about true family. It's chapter 2, which is the significance of the blessing. Chapter 2 in book 5 is a really beautiful section about the significance of the blessing. And that, if you want to get a really big overview perspective from true parents themselves about what the blessing is, I recommend that. Okay, so now moving on to number 4, I'm going to get some water. And I'm done. All right, so number 4, I left this one a mystery because I wanted to intrigue you guys. This one says sex. Okay, so I know you weren't going to think about you didn't know I was going to talk about sex so much. So the reason that I talk about sex so much when it comes to the blessing is because if you think about it from many perspectives, from the perspective of the divine principle, from the perspective of the purpose of the blessing, the purpose of God's lineage and God's intention for the original intention from Adam and Eve, and where Adam and Eve, but not only Adam and Eve, but all of humanity has deviated from the ideal of the blessing is through the sexual relationship. This is true father would agree with this. Dr. Young would definitely agree with this. Is essentially the blessing is a reversal of the misuse of sexuality throughout history. Period. Full stop. I think that is a very profound and easy to understand perspective of what the blessing is that makes sense to me and makes sense to a lot of people. All right. So if you ask around, you ask me, what does the blessing mean to you? It means it's a reversal of the misuse of self-centered sexuality, and it is the fruition of selfless, genuine, God-centered sex. It's taking what is originally a beautiful thing between a man and a woman in a committed relationship in the blessing, and it's taking it back away from evil, away from self-centeredness, away from the misuse, the destructive lineage that has been caused from the beginning, and returning it back into God's hand. That is what the sex is all about. This, guys, is what the blessing is all about. Another perspective about this is the 5 steps to change the blood lineage, okay? The 5 steps have been established by true parents as conditions to reverse the blood lineage, to change the blood lineage to God's blood lineage, all right? 4 of those steps out of 5, maybe even 5 of them, if we really get into theology of it, 4 out of 5 of them have to do with sex. Okay, guys, 40-day separation, 3-day ceremony. They have the holy wine, change of blood lineage, chastening ceremony, the reversal of misuse of love in between man and woman. Almost all of them have to do with sex. Okay. So if you ask me, and if you said that, Benji, it's a little weird that you're talking about sex so much, about the blessing in this episode, you know what I would say if you were sitting with me? If you were sitting here with me, I would say, dude, you're weird. Ma'am, you're weird for not talking about sex. It is actually strange that sex has such a big part, a big impact on what the blessing is all about, but we don't talk about it. Another perspective of this is that, bringing up pornography again. I bring up pornography again because it is so prevalent in our culture, all right, in our own movement. There was a study by Psychology Today that they surveyed 1,036 men and women from different demographics and found that 98% of men have watched porn in the last 6 months. 98% of men. And of women, 73% of women have watched porn in the last 6 months. Okay. Our own statistics in the unification movement are very similar. We've done a similar survey for 1,000 young adults in our movement and found that over 90% of men and over 50% of women watch porn in the last 6 months. Okay. It's staggering. It's shocking. I know. So the reason I'm bringing this up, guys, is to hammer home the point. It is actually really strange to me. It is honestly strange. It blows my mind, actually, that we don't talk about absolute sex, sexuality, pornography, which is one of the biggest roadblocks for people to experiencing a fulfilling blessing in sexual relationship, not only when they're single, but also people are bringing it into their own marriages. Guys, newsflash, is it's weird. It's honestly strange that we don't talk about the blessing in a way that brings in sexuality, absolute sex. It is weird. Your father talked about absolute sex nonstop. Dr. Young, who is now currently, as I'm speaking, the Continental Director of America, he's doing morning devotion every morning. And he, from the very, as soon as he landed in America, the first week, he was screaming about the importance of absolute sex. He would 120% agree with me here. So if you say, again, Benjy, it's weird talking about sex, about in regards to blessing. Well, guess what? You're weird for not talking about sex. It's strange. So we have to be comfortable. We have to be in the habit of talking about sexuality from a different perspective. All right. True Mother's end goal, the ultimate goal is, right, is we want to have every family and planet Earth blessed and experiencing a fulfilling blessing. That's the ultimate goal, right? That is a massive project. If you think about it logically, that is not just a movement we're talking about. That is not just a trendy thing. That is, Chimother's talking about world domination, my friends. She wants to dominate the world in a godly way with blessed families and have a blessed family in every home, like Steve Jobs, Apple computer in every home. Anyways, so if we want to get to that level, guys, we have to think about this blessing in a radically new way, in a radically different perspective. We have to shock the world. We have to speak to the original mind, the conscience, and the hearts of every man, woman, and child on this planet if we want to get there. And the only way we're going to get there is to talk about what the blessing is at the core. And that is, it's all about lineage. It's about lineage. It's about what is the single most important fact that the single most important act or behavior that affects lineage more than anything. It is sex. It is fundamentally what sex is how you use your sexual organ for selfishness or for selflessness. Your father said, what is more important, love, life, or lineage? Love, get that, love, life, or lineage. What is more important? Your father said, lineage, because it encompasses love and life. If lineage is the most important thing, we've got to address this at the core. All right. If you're with me, guys, I want you to like this video or share this episode with somebody that you love. This, again, is the steps to understand what the blessing is. I really hope this hits home for you. I want you to take some time to talk about this with somebody or journal about it at very least. But it's really important to have a conversation with your parents or your team, your matching supporter about what you've been hearing here, digest it a little bit, and try to take action. Again, I'm going to give you the full video, the 7 steps to a successful blessing. I'm going to put that video right down in the description of this video or this episode. And I'm also going to put it right over here. Okay. It's good to have you guys. I love you all. Take care.